The films in Spain mostly entertain. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out the introduction video. There's a link to that in the description below, and it'll give you a pretty good sense of what the Horror Movie Syllabus is all about. But in short, we take a look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then we pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. Today's subgenre are Spanish movies, movies from Spain. And it's kind of important for me to make this distinction because we're not talking about movies that are in Spanish, or I guess we are talking about movies that are in Spanish, but we're not using that as the criteria for what qualifies for this subgenre. We are talking about movies from Spain, movies that are either made by a Spanish filmmaker or set in Spain. And generally speaking, both, both a Spanish filmmaker and set in Spain is what we're looking at today. And the reason why I'm drawing the distinction so pronouncedly is because in a few weeks from now, we'll be talking about Mexican horror films, which are also in Spanish. And while there might be some overlap in terms of tone and theme and stuff like that between Spanish horror films and Mexican horror films, they are different, and I wanted to treat them differently. So there is why I'm giving you the distinction. Spanish filmmakers set in Spain. But outside of that, it's really kind of hard to come up with tropes for Spanish film. For Spanish horror film, at least. Unlike other things we've looked at, like Australian horror or the new French extremity, Korean films, where there tends to be a certain kind of motif or trope or theme or something like that that you can kind of pick out. With Spain, it was a little bit harder to do because the movies kind of tend to run the gamut. There's all kinds of different movies, kind of just like North American films, I guess, horror films. But if there is something, I think that there tends to be more drama in Spanish horror, and I don't mean drama like drama. I mean like drama like actual like drama, like dramatic stuff. Where a lot of the movies you can kind of argue are like more drama with horror elements. In fact, I feel like a lot of the movies that we're going to talk about today could arguably have been put into the horror drama subgenre. And I would actually argue that a lot of the movies we're talking about today could be put into a lot of different subgenres. And that's kind of my point, is that it feels like the thing that kind of ties a lot of these together is their location and their pedigree, who's made them. And that's fine. That's cool. I like that not every region has a set kind of trope. And I'm sure if we dug in deep to every region, we'd find exceptions to all of this. I'm just saying that when we've talked to other international horror before, we've kind of talked about there being a certain style or type for the region. And in Spain, I don't see that as much, except for, like I said, some drama, maybe some family tie stuff. But like for the most part, maybe some drama, but mostly flexible variety when it comes to Spanish horror. And that's a good thing because you never know what you're going to get. And I like that. I like having a little bit of surprise in my life. And the movies we have today kind of fit that bill, frankly. Like I said, you'll see some drama as a theme throughout, but that's mostly it. It's mostly a mixed bag, but a mixed bag of goodies, a mixed bag of good stuff. We have some great movies to talk about today, and as usual, I'm going to rank them in order of undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate level. And in this case, we're going to go with like how upsetting they are. They're going to get increasingly upsetting as they go on, and you'll see why as we go through the movies. But let me stop prattling on and let's go ahead and dig into these Spanish horror films. The first Spanish horror film that we're talking about today, the undergraduate level selection, is Wreck. Wreck came out in 2007 and is a perfect example of what I was talking about in terms of the movies that could fit into other subgenres, as Wreck is a found footage zombie movie set in Spain, made by a Spanish director. So you can see the flexibility or the versatility of the movies right off the bat. It also is an exceptional found footage movie, an exceptional zombie movie, and an exceptional Spanish film. It really checks all the boxes off because it's a really, really great film. And we're about to get into it in just a minute. Now, if you haven't seen it before, Rec is the story of this news person or TV personality who is doing like a show on the nightlife in Barcelona, and she's following around a fire department while they go on calls and stuff. Her and her cameraman, and they go on a call to this apartment building where there is some woman who's acting up, but it turns out she is infected with something, and she's become very violent. And an outbreak forms in the building, and they all get quarantined in the building. But the cameraman keeps filming because the woman wants to capture all of this, for to let the public know what's going on. And hijinks abound, of course, as they tend to do. And we don't want to spoil anything. But suffice to say, this movie is a ride. This movie is a lean, fast-paced scare fest, and it is extremely effective. Like I said, it's one of the best found footage movies you'll probably ever see, and part of that is because it's one of the most believable found footage movies you'll ever see. For whatever reason, found footage is a challenging thing to get really right. It's easy to make, hard to make extremely well, but Rex solves that problem. And part of what they do is have a legitimate cameraman running the camera, a professional running the camera, whose edict is to try to capture everything to have for posterity, for proof, So you already attack the issues that most found footage has with why are they filming? Why are they still filming? How come it films looks so good when people are scared? You've already got explanations for that. You've also got really believable performances from your lead woman, who I guess is actually an actual TV personality, who is kind of playing a version of herself in a way, to all of the other people who apparently are actually actors, but they give performances so authentic and so real. They really feel like people who are being interviewed by like a news person, who have a camera stuck in their face. They act the way a normal person would act. They react to the situations in believable ways. It's very realistic. It feels authentic. It feels like you're there in it. It has that, that the best part of found footage is kind of making you feel like you're right there in the shoes of the person. You're there in their POV. And this movie does it extremely well. Like I said, it's a fast-paced movie. It's not a particularly long movie, and it really gets going fast. And once it starts going, it does not stop. It does not stop at all. The action is just fast and hard-hitting. The scares come really fast, and it is great. It's wildly effective. It's really, really well done. And I called it a zombie movie, and for all intents and purposes, it is a zombie movie. But I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say it goes beyond that. It has some other stuff going on in there. What you'll find out by the end of the movie. Not going to touch that because I don't want to spoil it for you, but it is an interesting take on a zombie movie. So again, class act found footage movie, really fresh and original feeling zombie movie, and of course it's set in Spain. Now, the setting in Spain doesn't necessarily matter because you're all confined into one location, and so it might be almost incidental, other than the fact that it feels authentic. And then if you don't speak Spanish, and I'll be honest, my Spanish is poor. I think that it has a little bit of additional energy to it because, like when you're relying on the subtitles to see what people are saying, but you're feeling like an authentic emotion without knowing what the words are. When stuff starts going down and it starts getting really crazy, people are shouting and saying stuff. It almost doesn't matter what they're saying, and that's kind of the point. Like even if you didn't have the subtitles on, you know what's going on, and I like that. I like that feel for it, and it's an interesting note because they did do an American remake of this that I believe actually got released in the States before Rec actually got released in the States, which is unfortunate because it kind of steals the thunder. And the remake, which is Quarantine, is a movie that we've talked about here on the channel before, and it's like basically shot for shot, it's as much as a found footage movie can be. And it stars Jennifer Carpenter, and it's good. It's good because it's basically the same movie but in English. But for whatever reason, it's not as good, and I don't really know why, but I suspect that it's because the original's in Spanish, and it just has this feeling of kind of like otherness, or just like you're feeling like it's slightly less familiar, or a little bit more strange because of that. And also, I'd say that Quarantine has a little bit more of the Hollywood polish on it, so there is that. It doesn't really quite capture that verisimilitude, that reality of the found footage as Rec does. But it's still a fine movie. But Rec is perfection when it comes to found footage. It's about as good of a found footage movie as you're ever going to see. Now they did franchise it out. They have, I don't know, 4 or 5 sequels now. I have not seen all of them. I've seen the first couple ones. Diminishing returns, they're not bad. The ones I've seen are not bad, but they kinda get progressively less interesting to me. And I think it's just because it didn't feel as real. It didn't feel as real to me as the first one. Also, they kind of try to explain things a little bit more, which I like that the original one gives you some hints and some information of to what's going on, but it kinda leaves it there and lets your mind kinda piece it all together. So that's very effective, and I feel like the sequels take away from that a little bit, if I'm being honest with you. But Wreck, the first one, is a must see. It's again one of the best found footage movies you're gonna see. If you don't like zombie movies, watch Wreck anyways because it'll feel fresh, it'll feel different, it'll feel impressive. And for Spanish horror, it's a very accessible movie. It doesn't have any like cultural barriers or anything like that. There's nothing about the people in this movie that wouldn't react or act the way you would act, and so it's very relatable, even though they are in another country. And of course, they're from Spain. They're the same country as you, and this is all nonsense. But you get my point. So Rec definitely a must see. I recommend Rec. Sorry, I had to do it. Actually, I didn't, but I did it anyways. But definitely check it out if you haven't seen it because it is fantastic. And if you have seen it, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think it is as great as I say it is? Because I am obviously pretty into it, and a lot of people are. So if you're not, let me know in the comments below. We'll have a debate about it, but polite debate. But I have a feeling that you guys like it as much as I do. The next movie that we're talking about, the graduate level selection, is The Orphanage. The Orphanage came out in 2007 and it was produced by acclaimed director Guillermo del Toro. And more on him in a minute because he's not a Spanish director, but he didn't direct this movie. He just produced it, and it is widely considered to be an excellent masterpiece of a film. It's really well received, and for good reason because it is absolutely fantastic. And it does have unfair comparisons to Pan's Labyrinth. We'll talk about all that in just a second. If you're not familiar with it, the movie is about a family, a man and a woman, and their adopted son, and they are going to reopen an orphanage that the woman had originally grown up in. And she, in trying to set up the orphanage and dealing with her son who has some medical issues, winds up losing him. He winds up disappearing when they're having an open house for the orphanage. She can't find him, and then she starts to have paranormal experiences, and people don't believe what's going on and think maybe she's kind of going crazy or whatever, but nobody can find the kid. And hijinks abound as the search continues for the lost child. But we'll stop there so as to not spoil it for you. But the movie is wonderful. And the reason why I'm so effusive about it is because of that drama thing that I was talking about earlier. The orphanage really pulls in the family drama. It really sets up a lot of stuff that is more dramatic and less horrific. There are definitely pure horror elements in this movie. There are, ghostly type things. There are, sinister people, murder, missing children. There's plenty of spooks to go around in the movie. But the drama of it, the mother and her son, the family relationship, the mother and the husband, everything trying to work out there, her past history as an orphan. There's a lot of setup to this, and it all pays off really well. I think it goes really, really wonderfully. There's even some thematic stuff being put in there that I thought I didn't even see it. I didn't even notice it until they paid it off at the very end. Now they kind of hit over the head a little bit at the end to make sure idiots like me would get it because I had missed it. But it's a nice touch. It really is a well played movie. It's a slow burn. So if you're, not a patient person, this might not really tickle your fancy as much as it tickled mine, but it really is a fantastic movie. The director's name is J.A. Bayona, and I'm not really familiar with his work other than this movie, but man, he directs the hell out of this movie. It's all mood and atmosphere. And you know me, man, I like that kind of thing. I like, a creepy old house and, long, slow pan shots and, all your weird noises and, weird close-ups and stuff like that. He does an amazing job here. He's got a game cast that's really, really good. Even the kid who borders on being annoying sometimes works for me. And kid actors are hit and miss for me, and mostly miss because you know how much I love kids. But the kid does a good job of keeping me engaged and liking him and being worried for his safety and not being like glad that he's missing. So he rides that line because he is a troubled kid. He is supposed to have some issues. and it works really, really well. It's a good performance. But the spooks work really, really well too. Like if you love a good old fashioned, haunted house or ghost story, this movie's probably going to scratch that itch. This movie's going to probably do really good for you. It's just a really wonderful mood piece. It's got some good creepy stuff in there, some interesting side characters that worked for me really, really well. I really like this movie. Like I mentioned, it gets a lot of mentions of Pan's Labyrinth or compared to Pan's Labyrinth. Very, very different films, and I think it's just the Del Toro connection. He produced this movie, his name's all over it. Even like the look of the box art and the posters and stuff like that, kind of similar, but really Del Toro's fascination with like creatures and fantastical stuff is mostly absent from here, and good because it's more grounded. This is a more grounded movie than Pan's Labyrinth by far. Mind you, Pan's Labyrinth, brilliant, love it, love it. The Orphanage, love that too, but they're different. And I'm loath to compare the two. I'd probably push the Pan's Labyrinth button if forced to make a decision between the two, but I love The Orphanage too. It really is a well-made movie, and you feel for the family. You really connect with the family, especially the mom. It's mostly the mother's point of view, and you really buy into it, and you buy into that frustration that she has when people won't listen to her. It's got elements of things like Poltergeist and the others and other movies that we've seen, but it's borrowing really, really well and doing a great job of it. And it's really its own thing, but with nods to other influences, including maybe some Pan's Labyrinth. I think Guillermo's influence is in there somewhere, but it feels like its own thing. Kind of like a Tarantino movie. It's kind of drawing on a lot of other inspirations and is doing its own thing, and it does it really, really well. But it's mostly just how well made it is. And it's easy to see why people liked it so much, why it was so well received, critically received, because it's just a well-made movie that draws you in. Like I said, got to be a little bit patient with it, but not overly patient with it. And it does pay off extremely well. I would say that The Orphanage is it's not like a party movie, you know what I mean? It's maybe better watched alone or with a loved one than in a group setting, because I feel like it has a little bit more of that personal touch. When I think of like Spanish movies having, this drama angle to it, this is the movie I'm thinking of. There's other ones too, but this is the one I really think of because it really, that family drama, you could leave out the spooky aspects of this movie and it would be good. It would be a good movie. It'd be a really good movie without the spooky aspects. But of course, horror fans love that there's some ghosts there. So it works on multiple levels, but that family level, and we've seen that with other movies like Hereditary and stuff like that too. The family drama is great in a horror movie because everybody can relate to it. Even when you add the fantastical elements, you can relate to that core family drama. And this is a great movie that does that in a somewhat tragic way. And like I said, this is not the movie for a party thing because it's not going to be an upbeat movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a good one. It's one you should definitely check out if you haven't already. And if you have seen it, I'd like to know what you think, as usual. But I would highly recommend The Orphanage. I think it's wonderful. I think that it's really well made, really well acted, and it's a very moving film. I was very moved watching the movie. So definitely check it out if you haven't. And the last movie that we're talking about today, the postgraduate level selection, is In a Glass Cage. In a Glass Cage came out in 1986 and is the most controversial movie that we'll be talking about today by a long stretch. And it's the reason why I actually did these in order of like how upsetting they are because Wreck is mostly a fun ride, a zombie film, and The Orphanage has children in peril, so that's a little bit upsetting. But this movie's a little. This movie's a lot upsetting. I'll put it out there and just say it that way. But we're going to get into all that as we talk about it. If you haven't seen it, the movie is about a young man who finds a former Nazi war criminal who had done bad things to him and is now hiding in Spain with his wife and child, and he's living in an iron lung. And the young man poses as his nurse to ostensibly get revenge for the horrific things that this man has done. Only the movie goes in a very different direction at that point where the hijinks abound. But I don't even call them hijinks because that feels like a weird thing to say about a movie like this. This movie is not the easiest of watches, primarily because of its very real and very sensitive subject matter. What we're talking about, let me just be blunt about it. We are talking about a Nazi who would experiment on and molest children. That is what we're talking about. And now he's in an iron lung, and one of his former victims has an opportunity to get his revenge, which is a very satisfying premise for a movie. But the movie doesn't go where you think it's going to go, and it goes into some pretty upsetting places. I don't want to spoil the movie for you, but I feel like you kind of need to know, if you don't already, that this movie is not going to have the same kind of payoff that most revenge movies that we've talked about in our revenge subgenre have. The thing about revenge movies is they're very satisfying because you see the person get their comeuppance and you see them get their just desserts. That doesn't happen here. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. You see the corruption of a victim. You see them break down and become a monster in a not satisfying, really tragic, upsetting way. Challenging movie, to say the least. It makes for a very unclear message because again, it's not a straight revenge movie. You're not getting that revenge payoff. Instead, what you're getting is something far more probably realistic, unfortunately, where a cycle of violence gets perpetuated. You hear about this in terms of abuse and things like that. That abused people become abusers. That's kind of what this movie's going. Again, it's a kind of a messy message. It's not super clear what they're trying to say, and it's really upsetting. It's really upsetting, but it's a wonderful movie. It's really well made, really well acted, and just uncomfortable. It's the kind of movie that you kind of don't want to watch again. And it's not even like that there's a ton of like really graphic things. It's a lot of stuff left up to your imagination, or a lot of stuff that is described, and the description of the stuff happening, especially the stuff happening to the children, wildly upsetting. Wildly upsetting. This movie's definitely not for everybody, but it is a great movie. It's a really, really well-made movie that is very powerful, very interesting, and not at all what I was expecting it to be. And it's kind of brilliant, but it's also a super tough watch. And it's easy to see why it's so controversial. It's easy to see why it was banned in certain countries because the subject matter is just a little too touchy, a little too close to home, and also maybe a little too realistic. Maybe like nothing in the movie that happens is terribly unrealistic. It's kind of bizarre and shocking, but it's not a far-fetched thing. It's not supernatural or anything like that. So that's the kind of thing that is maybe a little bit too real for people. Maybe why it had the reaction that it has, and gets banned and whatnot. The movie apparently is like inspired by this actual killer from the 15th century, Guy de Ray, something like that. And I looked this up. I don't know anything about that other than he was like, yeah, he was like a child killer, child molester, and similar idea. I guess he got, I don't know if it was an iron lung, but like, because it wouldn't have been iron lung in the 15th century. Anyways, I'm going off topic. Inspired by a real life person, but in reality, it's kind of its own thing. But I don't think it's the reality, the based on the real person aspect of it that's the hard part. It's the Nazi stuff. It's the Holocaust stuff. It's just touchy. I mean, it's touchy always, but in the way it's handled here, it's not handled inappropriately exactly. It's just unflinching. I think that's the word I'd use. It's unflinching. It's not going to shy away from what happened. It's not going to sugarcoat it or make it easy. A movie that I thought about when I was watching this movie is a movie called Apt Pupil. We've talked about Apt Pupil before. And it's a similar idea where a young boy finds out his next door neighbor is a Nazi war criminal and gets fascinated by what he did. Very similar concept. And I wonder how much of it they borrowed from In a Glass Cage, frankly. It's a Stephen King story, so I wonder how much Stephen King borrowed. But the point is, that movie, while upsetting and touchy, is nowhere near as upsetting and touching as this one, because that movie, while dark and having some really serious subject matter and going to some really dark places, doesn't have the same reality or honesty that this movie has. This movie doesn't feel like a Hollywood movie because it's not. It's a Spanish film, and it feels like, I don't know, more authentic somehow. It feels very real in a very uncomfortable way. And like I said, it's incredible. It's incredible the way it makes you feel. It really is an effective piece of art in that sense that it really gets under your skin and stays there for a while, but it's not pleasant. And so I'm not exactly recommending this movie so much as I'm bringing awareness of it to you because I'm guessing most of you haven't seen this movie. It's not super well known, and it's kind of more notorious than anything, and for good reason. But if you are so inclined to watch it, I do recommend it because it is extremely well made and extremely effective at making you feel something. Ickiness, unsettledness, confusion, disgust. It really works on those levels. Uh, but again, I don't know what the message it's trying to convey is. It's definitely not a message of hope. That is not what's happening. Watch at your own risk, and let me know what you think of it if you do check it out because I'd be curious to hear other people's thoughts. I think it's a challenging movie, but I think it's one that is worth seeing if you have the constitution for it. So that's going to do it for our exploration into Spanish horror movies. But if you like these, I've got a few extra credit movies for you, and they're really, really good. So let's jump right into those. The first movie I'm going to mention is a movie called The Devil's Backbone. And The Devil's Backbone came out in 2001, and this one is directed by Guillermo del Toro. It is the only movie I think we're talking about today that does not have a Spanish director. It has a Mexican director, but it is set in Spain. It's set during the Spanish Civil War, and it's interesting because this movie comes out pre Pan's Labyrinth, but there are a lot of similarities between the two movies, and they're both directed by Del Toro. But we're going to get into all that in just a second. If you haven't seen the movie, the story is set during the Spanish Civil War, and it's set at an orphanage out in the middle of nowhere, being run by a couple of people, a man and a woman, who are supporting freedom fighters in the war and kind of smuggling gold to them and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they're not able to take care of all the kids that they have, all the boys that they have in the orphanage. A new boy gets dropped off, and they take him in even though they don't really have the room or the resources to take care of him. And in trying to get along with the other boys, he discovers a legend about a boy that went missing there, and he starts seeing the boy's ghost. And there's a mystery to unfold regarding what happened to the boy and what's going to happen to the orphanage as the war gets closer and closer and things go more and more awry. But we'll stop there so as not spoil anything. Suffice to say, the movie is great. It's absolutely great. It's no Pan's Labyrinth. Again, you can't help but compare, especially since both of those movies are set in the Spanish Civil War. There's a lot of similar themes regarding that. But Pan's Labyrinth, again, much more fantastical work of art. This movie, if you've seen Pans, you're gonna feel like you're seeing the precursor to it. You're gonna see some of the themes that Del Toro is gonna revisit in Pan's Labyrinth. The children, the setting, the backdrop of the war, the issues with authority, which is actually kind of a theme in all of Del Toro's movies, frankly. But you see it here. It's kind of it reminds me a little bit of watching Wes Craven's New Nightmare before watching Scream. Like you see the ideas kind of stirring around in a first attempt at them before getting the masterpiece later. Devil's Backbone, again, I'm not calling it the masterpiece of Pan's Labyrinth, but it's great. It's really, really great. Again, you get that drama. It's less family drama here because these are boys without a family, but you get a lot of drama here and even melodrama in here with some of the relationships between the teachers, the relationships between the boys. There's a bully boy, and then there's a new boy, and there's all these other boys. And there's other side characters, a fixed like a handyman and his girlfriend, and there's a lot of drama and relationship stuff that really works. Again, you could leave out the supernatural horror elements in this movie and just have like a historical drama, and it would be excellent. It would be excellent. Again, that whole thing, the drama really is a firm footing in this movie that really pays off well because you connect with characters, you care about the stakes, it all matters. And then the mystery is pretty engrossing. It's not super hard to solve it, I don't think, or at least most of it. But it's still compelling because you're kind of in the shoes of the kids trying to solve it, and you're going along that ride with them. It really is a pretty effective driver for the story to be following this mystery while all this other stuff is going on. It sounds like a lot, but it actually works really, really well. It never feels overblown. It never feels like it's messy or getting away from Del Toro. He really keeps a handle on everything. And while his trademark creature stuff is not really on display here, and the effects that are in here are okay. The direction is still really, really solid, and the story is very compelling. This movie is probably lesser known because of Pan's Labyrinth. This is an earlier Del Toro movie. It doesn't get as much shine, but it is really, really good, and Del Toro fans seem to really like it. And I think that it needs a little bit more exposure. I think people need to know more about it because on its own, it's a great film. If you can just divorce it from Pan's Labyrinth and a lot of Del Toro's other work, a lot of the stuff that that he's known for, the creature feature stuff, and just focus on the drama of this movie. Fantastic movie, really, really good. And if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. The next extra credit movie I'm going to talk about is a movie called Veronica. And Veronica came out in 2017, and it is important to note that we are talking about the Spanish movie Veronica that came out in 2017, and not the Mexican movie Veronica that came out in 2017. So that's super confusing, I know, but we're talking about the one that has to do with the Ouija board. So hopefully that'll help a little bit. But if you haven't seen it before, the movie is based on a true story of a girl who died using a Ouija board. And it tells a story of a young girl who's taking care of her siblings while her mother, her recently widowed mother, is trying to pay the bills by working a lot. And the young woman is trying to find a way to connect with her dad who's passed, and uses a Ouija board with some friends. And it doesn't go well because it never does in these kind of movies. And things start happening, paranormal things start happening, and things go awry and hijinks abound, as they tend to do in these kind of movies, and they tend to do when you mess with the Ouija board. But the movie is great. The movie is great for a couple of reasons. The biggest one is probably that the lead girl is fantastic. And yet again, I don't really know her or what she's done, and her name's escaping me at the top of at that moment. But she is great. She's very likable. You're with her. You want her to live. You already kind of know what's going to happen, and it's not going to be good because it starts one of those movies that starts at the end and goes back. But it really is a compelling thing to see her going through everything, and you're with her. You really want her to be okay. The other thing about this movie that works is that it's a Ouija board movie. It's there's a ton of them out there, but this one is really, really good. This is the movie that the movie Ouija wanted to be, should have been. This shows you how to make a Ouija movie right. That movie that we talked about, that had a really great sequel, but the original was pretty bad. That movie really didn't understand how to do this right. This movie does. This movie really ties into the religious aspect of it, the supernatural aspect of it, and again, the family drama. It really does a great job of setting up this family that is struggling, that is the challenging thing, and this girl, this teenage girl being thrust into an adult role and having to take care of everybody because she has to, because her mom is busy and the family needs help. It's a wonderful setup, and so you really care about the characters, and like that movie Ouija, where you don't care about any of the characters, the movie resonates because you care about this family. It's a really, really well done movie. The scares are very effective. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy because again, it's based on a true story, and whether you believe in the supernatural aspect of it or not, a girl wound up dead, and you know this. So it's really sad when you boil it down. Whether it was supernatural or whether there was psychological issues at hand or whether it was something else. A young girl lost her life, and it's really, you feel that in this movie. You really feel the tragedy of it, and it's wonderful. It's really, really well made. Again, Spanish movies coming in with that drama and adding an extra layer to the horror that makes you feel it more, makes it matter more than the average slasher flick. This is another movie that I would definitely recommend to pretty much any horror fan because it, like Wreck, it moves pretty good. It doesn't have a lot of complexity or too dark of stuff like in a glass cage, so you really can jive with it pretty well, and it's a good time. So I think it's accessible to everybody, so if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But I think it got some buzz on like Netflix or whatever, and so people were checking this one out, so it's got a bit of a rep already, so you may have already seen it. If so, let me know what you think of it in the comments and we can talk about it, because this one was a very pleasant surprise. It was much better than I thought it was going to be, and I really like it. And the last extra credit movie I'm going to mention is a movie called Open Your Eyes. Open Your Eyes came out in 1997, and I know it as Abre los Ojos because when I saw it in an art house theater, and that's the title they were using. It's just the Spanish version, and this movie is admittedly less of a horror movie and more of like a thriller slash sci-fi movie. I'm kind of stretching it a little bit to put it here in the horror movie syllabus, but I really like this movie and I want to talk about it, and it's my syllabus, so I'm going to do what I want. But this movie is absolutely fantastic. I love it, and I'm not alone because it's very well received. But if you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a young man who is very handsome and does really well with the ladies, and he meets a young woman played by Penelope Cruz, and they start having a relationship. But he has an ex girlfriend that is pretty jealous and tries to kill him in a car accident. He survives, but he's horribly disfigured, and they can't fix his face. So instead, he starts wearing this mask, and uh, then he goes through some dark period, and things get really, really weird after that. And I kind of want to just stop there because it's a little hard to explain, especially hard to explain without spoiling the movie, which I don't want to do. But the movie is really fascinating. It's a really cool idea that scratches the surface of existentialism, narcissism, getting your priorities straight, mental health issues potentially. Again, I'm not trying to spoil things too much, but the perception of reality, there's a lot going on, a lot of themes, a lot going on in this movie. And like I said, it's really kind of more thriller than horror, although there are some horrific things in the movie, and the mask itself is somewhat creepy and unsettling. So I'm going to call it horror, but and I'm slightly spoiling things by even telling you there's a little bit of a sci-fi aspect to this, but that's not even that big a deal because the movie defies spoiling in the sense that it's an ambiguous movie. And I could have put this in the ambiguous subgenre really easily and thought about it actually. But again, like these Spanish movies, a lot of them fit into other subgenres, and this is one of them. It really is one that I was able to fit here, so I did an extra credit because again, not a horror movie, but just a movie that I really really like, and it's a beautiful movie. It's made really really well. It's directed by Alejandro Amenabar, who we've talked about before with the others. He's an Academy Award winning director. He is absolutely fantastic, and he's great here. It's an exceptional movie. Now, a lot of you probably haven't seen this movie, but you have probably at least heard of the American remake Vanilla Sky, which was made by Cameron Crowe and starred Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz, and Penelope Cruz, reprising her exact same role from this movie, interestingly enough. And I like that movie a lot too, actually, but for whatever reason, that movie kind of critically maligned. People do not like that movie, but they love this movie. The critics love this movie and don't like that movie. And I'm not 100% sure why, because they stay pretty true. The remake stays pretty true to the original. My best guess is Tom Cruise. That Tom Cruise comes off a little bit more like a narcissist and an unlikable character, and so you're a little less connected to him than you are with the character Cesar in this movie, who is better, a better protagonist in terms of relating to him and liking him and caring about him. So that's my theory on it, because otherwise it's the same movie for the most part. There's some minor differences, but for the most part it goes the same way and does the same things, has the same plot points and everything like that. But for whatever reason, people like Abre los Ojos better, and I'm with them on this because it just feels right. Again, there's something about it. Maybe it's just the Spanish. Maybe it's because I like Spanish. Maybe it just sounds better. I don't know. Maybe because it's not shot with that Hollywood sheen. We were talking about that earlier with Quarantine versus Rec. It has a little bit more of a realism to it because it doesn't have that glossy Hollywood look to it. But it is a beautiful movie. It's got a really wonderful, high concept story that is, again, it may be a little bit messy because it's not going to have a clean bow of an ending. So if you're one of those people that needs a nice tight ending, you're not going to get it here. But if you're one of those people that likes ambiguous endings, if you like movies that make you think, have multiple interpretations, this is the movie for you. This is a really good one. It's a trip of a movie. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, not the most horrific movie in the world, but I wanted to talk about it because I love it and I wanted to tell you guys about it. So if you haven't seen it, big recommend from me on this one. But if you have seen it, let me know what you think. And if you've seen it and Vanilla Sky, let me know what you think of the comparison between the two. Are they pretty much the same movie? Is it obvious that Open Your Eyes is better? Let me know in the comments below. So that's going to do it for our video on Spanish horror films. As I pointed out, I think these movies kind of run the gamut in terms of what kind of movies they are, what style they're in, how they look, what they are, all that. But overall, just quality. Lots of quality coming out of Spain. I really, really like pretty much every movie that we talked about here. Some of them are hard to watch. I'm looking at you in a glass cage, but they're great movies. So if you haven't seen any of these and you have the patience for subtitles, check them out. High recommend for everything today. But now it's time to talk about horror trivia. It's where I'm going to look at a horror trivia pursuit card and I'm going to try to answer it right here on camera without cutting. Then we're going to look at the international subgenre for obvious reasons. International category, do subgenres on these cards. But here's the question. What character in 1932's Vampire is assisting the titular creature? It's funny. I saw that movie in college, which, was almost 30 years ago. um, and so it's been a minute. But I recently bought the Criterion Collection DVD of it, which I do not have handy, but it's over there. I can see it from where I'm sitting. But I'm not going to get up and do it because I'm not cutting right now. But I haven't rewatched it yet. I haven't had time to rewatch it yet because it's out of scope for the syllabus. 1920s is not in the scope of the syllabus. 1930s rather, excuse me. So it's a it's not one that I can say that I've revisited in a long time, and you already know I suck with names. So this question has stumped me. But deductive reasoning would say to make an obvious educated guess because while I may not remember this movie very well, I know Dracula, and Dracula has an assistant, and so I'm kind of going with that. And I've kind of prodded on a little bit to give you guys a chance to come up with your answer, but I kind of feel like either you know this or you're going to take the same guess I'm taking. And I think that guess is kind of obvious. If you guys know Dracula, the story, the book, the movies, any of that, then you know that there is a assistant character, and I'm going with that. That's my answer. Hopefully, you got yours locked in. So yeah, I'm going to say Renfield. That's the obvious guess, and it's probably wrong because they probably had a different name for the character in the 1932 movie. But that's what I'm going to go with because I got nothing else. I don't remember. It's been too long since I've seen the movie, so I don't remember. But let's take a look at the answer. And the answer is, oh, it's not even a name. It just says the village doctor. Oh, wow. I'll be honest, I don't remember that at all. Little bit of a disappointing and lackluster reveal there. Sorry about that. Did any of you get village doctor? Did anybody come up with that one? Because I was looking for a name, and that's maybe my mistake was I focused on the name. But even then, I wouldn't have remembered it being the doctor. Like it's just been too long since I've seen the movie, and I've seen too many other variations of vampire movies since then. I just get too confused. But when I revisit it, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, it's the doctor. Yeah, there it is. But I failed this week. Hopefully you didn't. Let me know what your answer was. If you guessed the name that wasn't Renfield, be curious to hear about that. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you for sticking around to the end. Thank you guys for comments that you have and your recommendations. Looking forward to reading them and continuing the conversation down below. And then next week we're going to be doing something else. I don't know what it is yet, but it'll be cool. And until then, class dismissed.